Check it out.
Friends and enemies, lovers and haters, welcome to Sends and Suffers podcast. I am your host, Mario Stanley. If you haven't already, please follow, like, subscribe, do all the things, even leave a comment if you dare, because all these things make this podcast grow, and most importantly, share it with your friends, your family, or anyone you think that wants to hear this. If you want to go one step farther, support us on our Patreon. Every month, we post early release of podcast episodes and a little video just to let you know what's going on in my life, professional and personal. So if you want to get the inside scoop, that's the place to be. With as little as $5 a month, you can support Sends and Suffers podcast and make sure that this podcast keeps growing, keeps getting better, and keeps bringing you that good. Today, my guest is Kaya. On Instagram, she's known as the One Travel Chick. She is a writer, a climber, an off-with lover, a filmmaker, and what I am so excited to announce is a fellow sci-fi nerd. Now, there's going to be a section where we totally nerd out, but without any further ado, please enjoy this episode with Kaya.
My name is Kaya Lindsay. I am originally from Santa Cruz, California. It's a tiny little beach town on the coast of California, about hour and a half, 2 hours south of San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And my connection to the outdoors is winding, but I think initially what most people would know me as is the chick who built outdoor sprinter van. Traveled around alone for a long time, but more recently I've gotten really into off-with climbing and trad climbing. And so, I'm mostly the trad climber traveling around, and I'm really trying to lay heavy on the whole promoting women in trad climbing and like doing kind of documentary film work.
I feel like you're doing really well of that because it seems like there's a massive explosion of that. And it just seems like, I don't know, I mean, especially on the internet, it seems like you see more of that than you see, the sausage fest climbing.
It would be wild, and I feel like it would be presumptuous of me to take credit for that, but I do notice that there are more women climbing, and specifically trad climbing now, more than ever before.
It's a group effort, so You ladies are killing the game. Good job.
Yeah.
So what made you dive into this? Like, why trad climbing? I mean, obviously there's sport climbing, ice climbing.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's beyond the world of climbing, you can stand up paddleboard, underwater basket weaving, whatever else it is. But why this median? Why did you want to dive into this? Because I love off-with, so I'm going to go ahead and say this now. Like,
you love off-with?
Oh, I climb it all the time.
I love
when
that.
I have it. So we have this place called the Wichita Wildlife Refuge, and it has it. And also, one thing about me too is like, I acquire the skills to do the route I want to do. So I want to do the Harding route in Lone Pine, and there's a 10D variation, there's an 11C variation. Both of them have off-withs on them, and so the climbing partner I had is no more, so that trip had to get postponed, but I acquire whatever skills I need to do the route. I just do not care.
Yeah.
But inadvertently, I end up falling in love with it. And so I spend a lot of time bouldering because I thought that would be the fastest way to acquire overhang and very difficult skills in off-with. So I spent probably like 3 weeks just bouldering in Vitavu, just trying to like sample as much as possible.
That's a really good way to get strong. Go to Vitavu.
I don't know any other way to do it.
Yeah.
So why did you want to just jump into the pain cave?
Why into the pain cave? I had been climbing for a couple of years, and I had not like a major climbing accident, but I ripped some gear. I was doing the Leaning Tower on Washington Column. No, I was doing the Leaning Tower in Yosemite. And that's what it's called. That's the route's name, is Leaning Tower. It was a long time ago. It's an aid route, and it's overhanging, and I ripped a piece of gear and took like a pretty big whip. Fell like upside down, but it was like overhanging, so I didn't like hit anything. And I basically like met my belayer at the on this route, and I was kind of like, oh god, like what just happened? And it really shook me. And it shook my confidence in my gear and just like trad climbing in general. I was like, oh my God, this shit is so dangerous. Like this stuff could just fall out at any minute.
I mean, rock climbing is inherently dangerous.
Yeah. Right. And obviously I knew rock climbing was inherently dangerous, but it just like, it struck me in that moment. And I kind of like took a pretty significant downturn in my climbing around that time.
When was this? Ballparks.
Probably 2019. Around maybe early 2019.
Did you stop posting as much or stop being as vocal at what you were doing?
Yeah.
It's funny. I've been following you for a long time. So, and we talked about that for a while. Like, I still have your sticker actually at my house. It's not on anything, but I still have your sticker with all your business contact information.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That was such a long time ago.
A while ago. But I and I'm definitely not one of those people who constantly is on social media. I mean, I'm on it more now than I want to be, but it's part of the job.
Yeah.
But I try to absorb very, very, very select content.
Yeah.
And yours is in that mix. And I did notice for a while, it seemed like you just kind of like were off the radar for a little bit, or you eased up. And granted, I think the things you were posting had more depth. You were posting less, but you were posting deeper. And it was just something that I just had noticed.
Yeah.
And then it seemed like you had now I see your stuff more consistently and I see it back on the feed, back on the scene again.
Yeah.
But that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's wild. Like you felt like you met your maker.
Yeah. I mean, I was just like not okay with climbing. I was terrified. And also to that same, just to address that, like I was also in a relationship with someone who just didn't really want me to climb. Yeah, it was a weird thing. He has some like outlying like anxiety issues and that like spills over into like control issues. And
that makes sense.
At the time, I'm not with him anymore. But at the time, we had moved to a place in Reno, and he just like kind of not psyched for me to climb, and he was injured, and so we were like having a lot of like personal difficulties around that, because I was like, all I want to do is climb, but when I try and climb, I freak out, and he was just like, well, I don't want to climb. So I just kind of fell off of it for a little while. But that being said, like, yeah, I was trying to like, climb 10A in the gym, and I would tie in and I would get halfway up the wall and I would just like panic, like full blown panic mode. Like shaking that whole, when you're nervous before, like everyone, if you climb, it was that on everything. And like I needed people to keep me like so tight. Like I needed to feel so secure. And it was like super frustrating because I felt like I went from, projecting my first 512s and feeling pretty confident on 511 to just absolutely getting wrecked. And so the pandemic happened, and that kind of like exploded everybody's life.
Yep.
For me, it manifested in breaking up with that partner, losing the place that I was living in, losing all of my paying clients, and dislocating my shoulder and having none of my unemployment income come through.
I feel like everybody during COVID has either like a COVID war story or a COVID outrageous purchase.
Yeah.
And yours is a combination of like, to me, it just sounded like you were in a COVID UFC fight.
I was in a COVID UFC fight. On top of that, my mother and sister lived in California, and there was the really gnarly forest fires. And so I was stuck in Wyoming.
Oh my God.
And my mom and sister were evacuating their homes. And I was just like,
you can't do anything.
I can't do anything. It was rough. I was really going through it. And so during that time, I was in Vitavu. And I basically took up wrestling with rocks as a way to cope with like all of the stuff that I couldn't control in my life. And off with, ironically, felt really safe because you can put gear above you a lot of the time. So you're not always, but you're primarily like either on top rope or you have a piece like right in front of you. And then on top of that, the routes at Vitavu are not that long. And so I never had to really like confront like the fear of being up super high.
That's interesting because most people I find are, and I'll even speak for myself, some of the hardest routes and some of this, not scary. I like big, bold climbs. Like I like to be scared. I like to be nervous.
Yeah.
But some of the routes that have made me the most nervous are the shortest because I'm like, I'm so close to the ground.
I'm gonna hit the ground.
I'm so close to the ground. In comparison to like climbing in Vegas, like I've climbed so much in Black Velvet Canyon. Like I can't even tell you. There's only maybe like 4 or 5 routes that I haven't done.
Oh, damn.
And then a few of the obscure ones that like the backside. I've done like the backside of epinephrine, which is terrible.
The backside? Like the other side of the pillar?
Yes.
Oh God.
It's a route there. It exists. It's terrible and it's dirty and you should bring.
Is it a chimney?
No, it's basically a hand crack, and you're just like kind of climbing in this little dihedral majority of the time.
Oh, okay.
And so yeah, it's just like bring a shovel to clean it. You're gonna do gardening while you're on the way. You're just moving sand. It's just dirty.
Oh God.
But if I'm like way up above the deck, I'm like I can care less about falling.
Yeah.
But that's interesting that you felt safer because they were shorter.
Yeah. I mean, I think it gets back to like I was primarily a boulderer. Growing up, like when I learned how to rock climb, I was primarily like I bouldered in the gym. And that's really where I fell in love with rock climbing. Plastic pulling, not really rock climbing. But
I mean, it's rock climbing.
Yeah. I fell in love with the concept of just like being close to the ground, hanging out with your friends, trying really, really hard. And so short offwits, like you can definitely do that. Which feels really, I think that's kind of the thing that I like.
Okay. And so all that led up to you falling in love with Offwith and now advocating for women to start climbing more trad and Offwith.
Yeah.
That's a wild ass turn.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It kind of makes sense. You know, like life flashing before my eyes. I thought I met death, the destroyer of all worlds. Then my world was being destroyed along with everybody else's.
Yeah.
And then now you came out of it fucking tough as nails and I'm like hard as a diamond.
I hope so.
I don't know if you were just listening to what you just said and we can play it back, but I think that's really what just happened here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So how do you feel about all of this? Like I know it's a really silly question to ask, but like, I like to ask these kind of like introspective questions. Cause you know, there's only, in my opinion, there's only 3 kinds of like physical, like internal capital. There's physical, like exercising. There's emotional dollars. Yeah. There's physical dollars, emotional dollars, and spiritual dollars. So like, where's your spirit at with all of this? Because I can hear you emotionally have grown and you emotionally here. Yeah. But like, where are you at with all of that? I know it's kind of a weird question. Climbing? Yeah.
I mean, right now I am doing the dance of trying to make climbing a career. And not because I'm trying to be an athlete. Like I'm not interested in that. And that doesn't mean I don't think that I'm strong. It just means that I'm not interested in being like a sponsored athlete. I think
you're not chasing grades.
I'm not chasing grades. I don't like their jobs are actually really hard. Like I have friends who are professional athletes and like they do a lot of freaking work for not a lot of money. And I just am like not interested in that.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, the history of all written word and produced media is probably 95% male.
Agreed.
And so my whole life's goal is to just create content and stories in any format that focus on women. And I got to a point where I was like, I don't even need it to be good. I don't care. Like, I am literally just adding to the literature of the female experience because it doesn't exist. Like, literature, when you talk about what literature is, it is like primarily a white male experience.
Yeah. I mean,
and
that's
like,
who's been writing it.
Yeah. And so it's like, it is an act of rebellion for me and, you know, for anyone, just like adding their experience to that. Like, if we think of like, this is the pie that is all human experience that has been chronicled. Like adding yours to that is literally just like pushing the needle and like, doesn't have to be good. Doesn't have to be great. I want it to be good. I want it to be great. But like, I am just like pushing the needle and making more stories about the female experience. That's like what I'm doing. And I've kind of like taken a chunk out of the climbing community.
You like to pick a fight, don't you?
Well, I do like Offwith.
After this, I have a little YouTube project I'm working on, and a portion of it is picking a fight with people. I think we'll spit about it, but I think you're gonna like it. It's pretty satirical.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah.
I'm into that. So yeah, that's where I am spiritually. I'm just trying to add more content into the world about women doing stuff. in any capacity.
Is there anybody out there already that you feel that is doing it, even in a small capacity, that you admire and that you are just like, like collaborating with?
I really admire Kathy Carlo's work. Yeah, I really admire her work. I actually don't listen to her podcast, which I should. But I have a very I listen to mostly creative, not creative media. I listen to mostly like fantasy and like sci-fi and fiction media. And so podcasts are sometimes difficult for me to get into.
You won my heart just by saying you're a sci-fi nerd.
I'm a huge sci-fi nerd.
Oh, I have watched. So just like going on this little tangent, I have this thing that I do every few years.
Yeah.
I binge watch all of Deep Space Nine, Star Trek, all of Next Generation, and then I will binge watch all Battlestar Galactica. And then I generally try to like see if there's any cross references, because a lot of people don't realize like a lot of the same writers work on these projects.
Yeah.
So like for example, like Stargate. People don't realize the creative writers. Okay, this thing is driving me nuts here. I don't know why it's being this way, but it's being this way today. But a lot of the creative writers that worked on Stargate also worked on Star Trek: The Next Generation, also worked on all these other things. So this is me as a random little nerd.
Yeah. I
try to see if there's like random little, like when someone sets a route, they have habits. They're like right-handed. They do these things. Like they have things that they repeat and that they do. And I try to look for that in
the
people's writing.
Yeah.
And it's fun. You can see it in certain things. But yeah, I definitely like binge watch horribly. I binge watch all of Firefly. I
go through Firefly every couple of years. I'll just like start over.
It was one of the greatest sci-fi TV shows ever written.
Oh my God.
Did you know that show broke a historical record? That show had more fan mail come in than any show in history when it went off air, about people advocating for it to go back on in one single, like, and not like all inclusive, like much, but like the amount that came in one single slew. People were pissed.
I mean, like that's how we got Serenity, like the movie, like it was basically fan funded. Like fans were like, no, we need this.
Oh, I watched that movie religiously.
It's so good.
Yeah. It's on my Amazon downloads and it's on my phone.
So just in case you like an emergency.
Always entertaining. And then if you watch it enough, there's always something that like catches, I don't know. To me, there's always some random little thing that I see. I'm like, how did I not see this thing, this weird, creepy alien?
So I actually like think of myself as like a space cowboy, like in my head, like when I'm driving around, this is my little spaceship that I'm in, my van. And like I am a freelancer, so I do a lot of odd jobs for money. I travel around. I have my little haunts. I have like, the places that I stay, and like, oh yeah, I know there's like good Wi-Fi here, or here's a good watering hole, or like, oh, there's this person who I know, like, let me park in their driveway and charge up, and like, I kind of think of myself as a little space cowboy.
No, I like that. I love that. I love that. I think for Halloween one year, you should get cardboard wings and put one on the top of that and turn it into a shuttle.
Oh, that would be so cute. I could make it a little Serenity.
Yes. Oh my God.
Oh my God. I've never thought about dressing
I'm not going to lie. I like just have this bonding moment. And now I just want to like talk about like Sci-Fi Channel, and then
let's turn the camera off. Let's just take a second. Let's talk about
there's so many shows. Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm actually for the first time watching the original Star Trek. I've never seen it. And no, sorry, with Picard, not the original.
Oh, okay.
So Next Generation.
Yeah,
I've never. I think I'm in season 2, right after they killed that one woman character for some reason, like really early on. I'm very early on.
Oh,
I've got
Tatiana.
Tatiana.
Oh,
and they got rid of Wesley Crusher's mom. Like, she's no longer there.
Oh, she comes back.
Okay, I was like, what's going on?
No, Wesley's dad died, and then Beverly Crusher, his mom.
Yeah.
I think there's a scene where she goes away or something like that. I'm not sure, but she's throughout the whole thing.
Oh, okay, because I was like, this character is just gone now. Like, okay,
but Tatiana, the short-haired woman. Yeah, the one that Worf was slightly in love.
Yeah.
Data ended up having sex with.
Hey, Taylor, how are you, girl?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right, doing all right. You know, just trying to live the dream and kill the game every day.
Yeah, I feel that.
how's, how's been training your classes going?
It's been going really well. I actually just took a week off, though, from training to go on a little vacation.
Oh, nice. Oh, nice. Where'd you go?
I went out to Breckenridge, actually, to do some camping out in the mountains. It was pretty spectacular, kind of cold.
I mean, Breck is
already
beautiful. Yeah, Breck is very beautiful. That's awesome. That's awesome. What was the best part about your trip?
Probably just getting to disconnect from the world for a little while and, really enjoy my surroundings and just be one with nature, a little too one with nature. My tent kind of gave out at the very end there. We went to the primitive campgrounds and it got a little sketchy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've definitely had that happen before. Bad tents and bad camping gear makes for an epic trip. No bueno sometimes, but definitely an epic trip. Oh.
Yeah. And it was good timing because it was there at the very end, but I'm definitely going to have to do some replacing in some of my gear. I know you are into that kind of stuff, right? Like, do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Nemo. They kind of came on the scene a little while ago, and they've been around for a while, but their tents are awesome. And it's funny enough, the owner of the company had an experience much like you, and it just failed him, and he was infuriated with it. And then he set out to create amazing, amazing products. And if you're going to be doing like a lot of backpacking, they make an Aurora that is really good. But I would definitely check them out. And if you decide to purchase anything from them, if you use the promo code Sends and Suffers 20, you get 20% off. You help the podcast.
Okay. I'm sold. I'm definitely checking this out.
All right. Well, hey, I look forward to seeing you in the gym later on this week. And I'm still excited. I'm going to try to catch one of your fitness classes, but I got to jump off here. But it's good catching up with you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Sounds great. I'll see you later.
We were talking about people that I look up to, and then we got on a big tangent of sci-fi and Star Trek.
But yeah, Tatiana died. It was like, there was a big uproar about that.
Oh, yeah.
Right after the disease going around the ship where everybody was acting weird.
Yeah.
And her and Data had sex.
Yeah.
And like she died right afterwards. People were so mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
I know. I remember looking into that because I looked up why she was like axed as a character, and there wasn't really a good explanation. And it was just kind of like, they just didn't want her in there anymore. And I was like, what? So that was weird.
And they moved Worf into her position. I personally think that my guess is like they just couldn't handle a woman being like chief of security and things like that. And now in the new Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, like it's gone back to that. Like majority of the deck, like the leading senior staff is female.
Yeah.
Which,
is rad.
It's so rad.
I've seen some of the new Star Trek as well. I can't remember what it's called.
Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
It's got that actress. Her character's name is Michael. And she's
no, you're talking about
sister.
Discovery. Yes.
Oh, okay. I liked that one. I thought that was really good.
So yeah, this is another thing where I like go on this tangent where like you can actually in the Next Generation, in the original, in Strange New Worlds, and in Discovery.
Yeah.
If you like, once you watch them a couple times, you can actually see where all the storylines cross, because this is like, it's supposed to be like, Marvel's metaverse, like there's its other universe, but there's such a deep history with all these things in canon and in non-canon that like you can see where all of it crosses over. So it's really good. Like one of the Strange New World episodes, they actually reference how Spock's sister disappeared.
Ooh.
In the Discovery episode. So when the ship went back into the future, that is one of the very first episodes of Strange New Worlds where they reference that.
That's cool.
Yeah. And in Star Trek, I'm curious in the Next Generation if there's a reference of that moment, because they talk about it. All right, we're going on like
we're going way off.
Yeah,
this is not a sci-fi podcast.
We should do that Climbers Sci-Fi podcast. Oh my god!
I mean, I have a big theory. Rock climbers are all nerds.
Oh yeah.
Like, people think rock climbing is like bold, really cool, kind of like intense sport, but like everyone I know who's like a really good rock climber is also the biggest nerd. Like, super awkward. We're all like kind of weird engineers who just also kind of like to be outside.
We all have to be neurotic. Like, we have to be neurotic. Like,
yes.
Offwith is a prime example. You need to be neurotic in detail. If not, you're going to slide right out.
Yep. Aid climbers.
Yeah.
Aid climbers.
I recently have been dabbling into that world, and I'm like, I like this. I mean, this is terrible, but I like this. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because like the first time I ever really watched a bunch of people playing D&D was at a crag. All these climbers were like climbing all day, and then I'm like hearing people act like fucking goblins and these weird things, and I was like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, we got a D&D match. You want to play? And I'm like, I don't even know what this is, but I'm going to sit and watch because this is great.
I do listen to a D&D podcast.
Have you ever watched celebrities play D&D on YouTube?
No. That sounds so funny.
I think what's her name? Silver Spoon?
Reese Witherspoon?
Yes. No. Maybe not. It's not Reese Witherspoon. Who is it? Oh, she's.
This is now a pop culture podcast.
It is.
We're not going to talk about rock climbing for the rest of the hour.
Yeah. But long story short, it's like Jack Black and all these famous comedians and actors play D&D and get into character.
Fucking awesome.
It is the best. I laughed my butt off. It is so good. Oh, I'm trying to remember this other person's name, but it will come to me. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think most climbers, like, you have to have the ability. When you reach a certain level in rock climbing, like, I think when you reach a certain level in rock climbing, you become a little bit neurotic. You have to be able to be a geek, a little neurotic, and then you have to become a little bit of a masochist. Yeah. Like, it's just like, at that point, if not, you're just going to be kind of huffing around. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the thing that I like about rock climbing, and I think this is a thing that calls to a lot of people, is that it is learning to sit with extreme discomfort and use that as a tool to achieve instead of an obstacle.
Oh, yeah, that's really well put. I've always agreed with that statement, but I've never heard it so elegantly well put.
Well, I'm a writer.
That was a solid flex. Like, I like how you're like,
I flipped no one can see this, but I flipped my hair as I said that.
No, that was a solid flex.
And I clenched all my muscles, so I look really strong.
That was clutch.
No, but yeah, I really do think that, like, the thing that I like about rock climbing is that it is hard and it is uncomfortable, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but you know, for me, being comfortable all of the time and feeling good all of the time feels bad.
Yeah, no, because it's not real. It's like being in a relationship that you never fight. Yeah. And it's like, people are like, I've literally met people who are like, yeah, we don't really fight that much. And I'm like, oh, there's a lot of underbelly shit going on like that. Because like, my best relationships I've ever been in, I've fought like cats and dogs with them. But it's because, like,
you're engaging. You're engaging with that person.
You can't hide. Like, you can't hide. And I think that's the beauty of rock climbing too. Like, you can't hide. Yeah. Like, when you're up there, you can't hide. And the funny part about it is I think people think sometimes they're hiding from everybody watching and whoever's playing on the rope. But no, like, you are trying to either hide from yourself, but it's you. Yeah. And it's the biggest thing. Like, The Rock doesn't care. Nothing changes. The only variable that ever changes consistently is you getting on the wall. Yeah. And I think that's a hard thing for people to reconcile with.
Yeah. I mean, I also think it shows us, like, the depth of what it is to be human, right? Like, there's two sides to the coin, right? We have high highs and low lows. And in rock climbing, I've had the highest highs and the lowest lows of my life been in rock climbing. And like, those low lows make me appreciate the high highs. And so I think that if you live your life in this kind of like soft, everything's really comfortable and you never really, reach the depths of yourself or reality or whatever it is. Like, you have no way to know how high you can go. And like, for me, that's what rock climbing gives me. Like, the first time I ever did a hand jam, it was excruciating and I never thought I'd do it again. And now I live my life and like hand jamming feels amazing, and like, same kind of thing in off-width. Like, there was a time when climbing in Vitavu was extremely painful and excruciating. And now the desire to make it to the chains overshadows the pain that I feel. And only when I get to the bottom do I kind of realize, like, oh man, I'm like a little bruised up. I'm a little banged up,
Can you give me an example? Because I feel like we started this off with like definitely a story of a low.
Mm-hmm.
So can you give me an example of a high in your life, just for perspective for everybody listening?
Yeah, no, funnily enough, like it's going to sound very mundane. And I mean, I have like highs from like climbing stories and like getting to the chains and all that stuff. But really the one that always sticks out to me is right after I first hit the road. And this is when I first discovered trad climbing. And I was in Yosemite Valley and I was driving my van around the loop. And you've been to Yosemite.
Yep.
Yeah. So if anyone has not been to Yosemite, it's basically a giant circle that you drive around the valley floor. And I was driving with a friend in the passenger seat. We were on our way to go rock climbing. And I had spent the entire week learning how to trad climb. And I remember like looking out the window and it was springtime in Yosemite and the grass was so green and the sky was so blue. And I was looking at Yosemite Falls as you drive past it and the chapel's on the right. And I just remember seeing like all these people walking along the roads. And I was just like, this is my space. This is where I belong. And I remember very distinctly having this feeling of being like, I didn't even know I could feel this happy.
That's beautiful. Yes.
Like before climbing, I had capacity for joy. And like after climbing, my capacity for joy tripled.
You were in a complete state of bliss.
Yeah. But not necessarily, bliss, but not bliss as in like, when you are, after you eat a really big meal and you're lying on your back in your bed or whatever, like bliss as in like fully engaged, like every atom of my being was like on working towards a goal. And it gave me like purpose and joy. And like, to me, that's like the highest high. And really, I've been chasing that moment for the rest of my life.
Never getting off the wave.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
I think that's, something I like that. I think that is actually very beautiful and very unique because it has everything to do with rock climbing, but nothing to do with rock climbing. And the reason why I say that is most people would expect you or myself or anyone to be like, well, it was this climb and it was at the top of this and that. And that is just like, you just kind of came home.
Yeah.
And you kind of like really just walked through the door of who you are in the beginning. And I think it's really interesting. And I think it's kind of cool because it kind of embodies this podcast. The name of this podcast is Sends and Suffers.
Sends and Suffers.
And, your send has nothing to do with so much being on the wall, but it was the beginning of every adventure you're going to have.
Yeah.
And we definitely talked about your suffer in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I think all of this is cool because it just shows how resilient you are and how you're bouncing back. And I don't think I think that's talked about a lot in real rock and everything of like, I just got on the route and it was hard and I did the next harder thing and I did the next harder thing. And then it was emotional and then I cried. But like, I don't think people really tell stories of, and this is something that I like, the stories that I like to hear. And this is why I started this podcast.
Yeah.
But I like to hear stories that are really, they're so relatable. Like anyone who hears that can understand stepping into a place where you understand you belong.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you for that because that was beautiful.
Thank you. I mean, I think that like the greatest thing that rock climbing ever gave me was a feeling of belonging, And like, I think a lot of people relate to that, is that like we all, every human being is searching for meaning and purpose and like joy and community and friendship. And, like, I think some of us are lucky enough to realize that where we get that is in rock climbing. And not everybody has that, right? Like
No.
in a lot of ways, like sometimes I feel bad for my friends who don't climb, but it's not their thing. Like this isn't where they feel at home. But I'm like, I want you to feel this complete joy and like acceptance that I feel.
I think also too, you have to take in consideration of like how you have to take in consideration of your emotional maturity, your emotional intelligence, and your emotional vocabulary.
Yeah.
And I think those things, and kind of going back to like spiritual dollars, emotional dollars, and physical dollars.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why people just go to the gym and lift, because those dollars are easy. You can get on, be an Instagram pro-ho, male or female.
Yeah.
Those are easy dollars to spend.
That's
Emotional
my goal.
dollars are harder. So like I would say, $1 to physical, and then you got to have 3 physical dollars to equal 1 emotional.
Yeah.
And then you got to have like 10 physical.
Yeah.
Or 10, 30 emotional to each equal spiritual.
Yeah.
And the thing is like that capacity to go there.
Yeah.
Rock climbing and any true adventure sport brings that out of you, because the thing with this sport and all adventure sports is there comes a moment where you are the only one can get yourself out of the mess that you're in.
Yeah.
And I don't think people are willing to do that as a whole.
Yeah.
I think just the general public wants, that's why guiding exists. That's why all this stuff exists, and it's easy.
Yeah.
But these people who don't do this, and our friends that don't do this, it is hard for them. It is sad because they miss out, because it's not just the joy, it's the full completion.
Yeah.
Like you're doing a full emotional circle.
Yeah.
And you're growing, and you're forcing growth in your life. And I don't know. Growth is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't think most people want to be uncomfortable.
Ooh, yeah, that's fair. That's real. No, I mean, like that's the crux of it, right? Like we are leaning into the discomfort and the pain of climbing, and a lot of people are not willing to lean in. I was really jamming out on what you were just saying about the emotional dollars. I like that whole like concept of, physical dollars equate emotional dollars equate spiritual dollars.
Yeah, if you get a chance,
that's kind of cool. I've never heard that before.
I just posted about it on Instagram, because like I had some big life changes, and I basically kind of had to sit back and realize like, how am I, as a 38-year-old male, someone who is in an industry that is rapidly growing and rapidly changing, but also rapidly, I think rapidly is wrong. There are some people who are just stoic. I don't think they're really trying to force it to stay the same. I think they're just trying to force their little niche not to change. Yeah. And it's like, and on top of all of that, how do I navigate my own personal life, my own personal feelings? Because it was for the first time in my entire life, a couple months back, like I had to reconcile my relationship with climbing, like if I ever wanted to do it again.
Damn.
And it was something I got put in a situation, and I'll tell you this off mic. Mm-hmm. But I got put in a situation where I felt like I had to weaponize climbing, like in a bad relationship where you weaponize sex.
Yeah.
And it just rattled me to the freaking core. Ugh. And I put myself in that situation. And that, along with other personal stuff, it was one of those things where I was just like I don't know. I didn't know what kind of capital I had to spend to get out of there.
Yeah.
And I was throwing myself at climbing and throwing myself at that. And what I realized is I needed to burn a lot of money, and I was going to burn a lot of money and maybe not get all the rewards, but it takes money to make money, and it takes money. It takes time, and it takes effort to grow. And not every effort and not every endeavor you're going to do is going to give you the return that you want, but it at least teaches you the direction you want to go in.
Yeah.
And I think climbing has this unique ability to do it much faster than a lot of other things. I think like maybe the only other sport I would say is like whitewater rafting, because like you're kind of just in it. Like there's nothing you can do. That shit terrifies me.
Yeah, it's much more reactive. I rafted the Grand Canyon in 2020, and I was like gained a whole new respect for people who do whitewater sports, but also was like, I see culturally how this is very similar to rock climbing and also completely opposite.
I would be so terrified. Oh my God. But yeah, that's cool. What's what were the biggest, I guess, what were the two things that you noticed? Like what was the biggest relation to it and what was the biggest difference?
Well, someone pointed out to me, and to be totally honest, like I actually really liked whitewater rafting, and I could see myself when I get older and have some money to get into it because it's kind of pricey.
Yeah.
Way pricier than rock climbing. That's the biggest difference. But someone laid it out for me at one point. They said that in rock climbing, when you get stronger and climb harder, you put in more and more effort. So 514 takes more effort than 513. 515 takes more effort than 514. So you are trying harder. In rafting, the harder and harder rafts or rapids that you have to navigate, you do less and less. And like the better you are, the less you'll do.
Because you know how to ride it.
Because you know how to ride it, and you literally just like dip your oars and like do a slight motion, maybe a couple backstrokes. Like really, really, really good oar rafters barely touch the water.
I feel like that's like the best. It's like the scariest pitch on Astro Man is the 510 slab, the 510C slab that no one's allowed to fall on. Like my boss fell on it and broke his ankle. I know so many people who have fallen on that thing, but like everyone's like, that's the scariest and the hardest pitch, but it is so delicate.
Yeah.
I think you're plugging, if I'm correct, Astro Man in the Valley, that thing's
Is it all gear? I've never done it.
Astro Man's on my bucket list.
Okay.
It's on my bucket list. Yeah, you should look at that thing.
I've heard about it. I've just never I just don't climb in the Valley very much.
Yeah. No, I've only climbed there twice, but it's like on my bucket list. But yeah, slab is the only thing I can think about. Like less is more. But Jesus, that's cool. I didn't really think about that. Now, look, when you say it, it makes obvious sense.
Yeah. But culturally, they're very similar. It's a lot of people just trying to get away from their families and, explore nature and try hard things. And yeah, so similar to rock climbing in that way.
I do not want to wrap this up, but I have to because the Lander Festival people are going to start like yelling at me and trying to figure out where I am. Yeah. But if people want to follow you, support you, actually first, people want to follow you, what do they need to do? Where are you at?
One Chick Travels, that is ONECHICK Travels on Instagram. That is also my website. And on Twitter, I'm Kaya Says, but that's, don't really follow me on Twitter. I don't do much there. It's kind of just like a throwaway.
And then how can people support you in the efforts that you're doing?
If they want to see my films, they can go to my YouTube channel. You can just type in One Chick Travels on YouTube and I'll be there. You can go to my shop and buy yourself a Girls Gone Wide t-shirt. Every single t-shirt sold goes to a good cause, which is feeding me. And I also sell stickers. The other shirts designs will be released soon. I'm really into this idea of releasing kind of like funny climbing t-shirts. So it's kind of my side business to pay for everything.
That's awesome. Well, Kai, I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to having another chat with you in the future. I know this is going to happen more. Yeah. And also, we do need to just have a straight up climbers nerd fest about sci-fi.
Yes.
Yeah. And anyone who's listening to this, if you got annoyed with the tantrum of like sci-fi, just hit skip next time.
Yeah.
But all right.
Oh, yeah. DM me about all your sci-fi theories. I need to hear them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. As you can tell, a friendship was born. We went all over the place. And honestly, I think this is one of the coolest conversations because I got to nerd out about something other than rock climbing. Yeah, I love climbing. Yeah, we talk about adventurous stuff. But we're all deeper and more multifaceted than that. And we all know that. And it's just nice to hear it. So, if you haven't already, remember, check us out on Patreon, Instagram, wherever. Like, follow, subscribe. Leave that comment because it makes such a big difference. And as always, if you're not suffering, are you even sending it all?
Structure audio.